For 10 years, Adrian had loved a man who now held the power to destroy him. Julian, the new president, had seized control in a swift, merciless coup, purging the old guard. The entire former ruling family was either executed or exiled. Only Adrian, the son of the deposed fifth-term senator, remained locked away in a lightless cell deep beneath the Capitol. He was the one Julian hated most. The heavy steel door finally scraped open. A sliver of light pierced the darkness, a blade against his eyes. Adrian raised a weak arm to shield his face, the simple motion leaving him breathless. Months of confinement and starvation had whittled him down to a fragile husk. A guard's voice barked an order for him to kneel before the president. A sharp kick to his legs sent him sprawling to the concrete floor. His forehead brushed against a pair of immaculate, hand-stitched leather shoes. The tip of one shoe lifted, forcing his chin up. Through the glare, he saw the face of the man who now ruled the nation. Strong brows, sharp, intelligent eyes, and thin lips pressed into a severe line. A frost seemed to settle in his gaze, a storm of hatred brewing within. It was Julian. Adrian tried to smile, a crack in his dry lips. His throat felt like it was lined with glass shards from disuse. He rasped out a simple request, asking for death. Julian's laughter was a cold, sharp sound. He withdrew his foot, and an aide immediately knelt to wipe the shoe, as if the brief contact had sullied it. He informed Adrian that death was too easy a fate. He promised to make Adrian suffer every humiliation he himself had endured, to torment him slowly. Turning on his heel, Julian gave a final command as he walked away. Adrian was to be taken to the residence and put to work as a servant. And if he refused to eat, a member of his mother's family, exiled in the southern territories, would be executed for each day he fasted. Julian was curious to see how long it would take to wipe them all out. As guards hauled him from the cell like a sack of dead weight, Adrian looked up. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue. It was just as bright as the day he had first met Julian. He had fallen in love with him at that very first meeting, a love that had lasted a decade. But for Julian, all of Adrian's affection, his admiration, his attempts at friendship were a source of profound shame, because Adrian was also a man. Before Julian, he had never felt that way about anyone. But seeing him that day, the brilliant son of the nation's most powerful political family, was a revelation. He was a figure of unmatched grace and intellect. From that moment on, Adrian's admiration was a fire that could not be quenched. They spent countless hours together, debating literature, drinking whiskey, analyzing political theory, and attending gallery openings. Their minds seemed to move in perfect synchrony. He recalled a time when Julian had even joked about it. He had relayed a conversation with Evelyn, who had teased that Julian spoke of Adrian so constantly, they might as well get married and spend their lives together. For a moment, Adrian's heart had hammered against his ribs. He was terrified that his secret, forbidden feelings would be exposed. He worked tirelessly to conceal them, to bury them deep. Evelyn, the woman Julian mentioned, was the daughter of the Secretary of State, his childhood friend. Adrian understood the bond between them, and he knew that anything more between him and Julian was an impossibility. He resolved to be satisfied with their intellectual companionship, their deep friendship. It would be enough. But it wasn't. That winter, a diplomatic crisis erupted with a rival foreign power. The president, Julian's father, was a weak man, prone to appeasement. The foreign power demanded a political marriage to seal a new treaty. Of the eligible daughters of the political elite, only Julian's younger sister, Sarah, fit their requirements. Their mother wept, and the president hesitated. In the end, he chose Evelyn. She was granted a title and sent away to that cold, distant country. The day Evelyn left, a heavy snow was falling. Adrian stood alone at the airport gate for hours watching the planes. And from a distance, unseen, Julian stood with him, a silent vigil in the falling snow. As dawn broke, Adrian turned to leave but stumbled, his body weak with grief. Julian rushed forward to help him, calling his name. But Adrian shoved him away, his voice raw. He ordered Julian not to touch him. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with a venomous hatred. Adrian didn't know how to comfort him, so he could only stammer apologies. Julian sneered, asking what good apologies were. He questioned if an apology could bring Evelyn back. He accused Julian, his voice dropping to an icy whisper, of concocting the plan to have Evelyn take his sister's place. Adrian denied it, grabbing at his coat, trying desperately to explain. But Julian pushed him away with such force that he fell, then walked away without a backward glance. For days, the image of Julian's desolate figure in the snow haunted him. He didn't dare seek him out, terrified of facing that anger again. Then, one evening, Julian came to him. He carried a bottle of Adrian's favorite bourbon. He called his name softly, his eyes filled with regret and guilt. He admitted his mistake, saying he had no right to blame Adrian or take his anger out on him. Adrian's relief was immediate, a smile breaking through his despair. He pulled Julian inside, eager to show him a rare First Ion book he had found. Julian stared at him, his gaze shimmering. After a long moment, he looked down and said quietly that it was good to have him there. Adrian believed they could go on like that as friends and confidants for the rest of their lives. But one day, Julian's older brother, the heir apparent, discovered Adrian's private journals. The pages were filled with his obsessive, passionate love for Julian. The scandal was immediate and explosive. The capital was in an uproar. As the public scorned and ridiculed Adrian, rumors began to swirl around Julian as well. Whispers circulated that he was seducing a senator's son for political gain, trading his body for power. Panicked, Adrian ran to Julian's residence to apologize. He found the gates locked. He waited outside for 3 days and 3 nights, nearly collapsing from exhaustion, before Julian finally appeared. He stopped at the doorway, his face a mask of undisguised revulsion. He spoke only one sentence, his voice cold and flat. He told Adrian to get out, that he made him sick. Adrian left in silence. His love, he now understood, was a filthy, disgusting thing. His heart felt like it had turned to ash. He vowed never to disturb Julian again. 2 years passed. The political landscape shifted violently. Adrian's father, the powerful senator, was framed for treason. The male members of his family were executed. The women were stripped of their status and assets, effectively enslaved by the state. A wave of outrage swept from the capital to the farthest provinces, but the president, swayed by corrupt advisors, was immovable. Adrian was the only man of his family left alive. The president, hearing of his sharp mind and proud spirit, had devised a special punishment. He had Adrian's assets seized and forced him into service at an exclusive, underground club catering to the perverse desires of the city's elite. It was a fate worse than death, designed to shatter not just the man, but the family's legacy of integrity. On the night of Adrian's first appointment, Julian appeared. He paid the highest price, and in front of everyone, he took Adrian back to his estate. That night, Adrian's face was pale as death. With trembling hands and red-rimmed eyes, he began to unbutton his shirt. Julian quickly grabbed his hand, assuring him that he only wanted to save him, that he meant him no other harm. Adrian snatched his hand back as if burned and gave a short, cold laugh. He lived at Julian's estate after that. He was given the finest food and clothing, and the freedom to do as he pleased. Julian exhausted himself trying to make him happy, to earn his forgiveness. For Adrian's birthday, Julian had a custom fountain pen crafted from silver and jade. A perfect gift. The next day, he saw the pen, shattered into pieces, in the garbage being taken out from the estate. He finally understood. No gesture, no matter how heartfelt, would ever matter to Julian. He wouldn't even deign to look at it. He was despised, down to his very bones. From then on, Adrian did his best to avoid him, terrified of hearing again that he was disgusting. He began to stay out late, wandering the city until the early hours. And slowly he noticed something. Each time he returned, he would see Julian standing under the old oak tree in the driveway. Their eyes would meet for a fleeting second before Julian quickly looked away. It seemed as if he was waiting for him. The thought flickered and died. He laughed at himself for his own foolishness. Julian couldn't possibly care about him in the slightest. On New Year's Eve, he wasn't invited to the president's state dinner. It didn't bother him. He sat alone in the garden, drinking. General Marcus Kane, a charismatic military leader, arrived unexpectedly, wanting to share a drink. Adrian was genuinely happy to have the company and drank heavily. Through a drunken haze, he saw Julian standing under a nearby tree, shadows dappling his white shirt, his gaze fixed on them, calm as still water. Adrian, emboldened by the alcohol, called out to him. To his surprise, Julian walked toward them. For the first time in so long, he was close to him again. But Julian seemed hostile toward Marcus, subtly positioning himself between them, shielding Adrian. Adrian drank until he blacked out. In the heavy stupor, he felt someone holding him tightly, an arm wrapped around him. The person smelled faintly of ink and old paper. Felt like Julian. He must have been dreaming. Because he loved men, everyone in the city avoided him like the plague. But Marcus treated him like a friend, visiting him often for a drink. And every time Julian would appear, no one knew what Julian and Marcus discussed after Adrian had passed out from drinking. 6 months later, General Kane led a military coup. The president's rule had been disastrous, and the nation was seething with resentment. With Marcus's backing, Julian ascended to the presidency. Adrian heard the news in a government black site. He felt a pain so sharp it felt like his heart was being torn from his chest. He saw it all clearly. No one in the world would ever love him. Even the man he thought was his only friend had just been using him. He was brought to the presidential residence, assigned the filthiest, most degrading tasks. The staff, former low-level bureaucrats, took great pleasure in tormenting him. To them, the chance to grind a former senator's son under their heel like a dog was a source of immense satisfaction. For meals, they gave him scraps fit for an animal. They chained him by the neck and made him eat from a bowl on the floor while they gathered around, laughing. They would tell him to finish every last bite. The president had ordered it. If he didn't eat, the Chun family would be slaughtered. The Chens were his mother's clan, their lives now held in Julian's hands. He couldn't distinguish what he was eating or what it tasted like. He just ate without hesitation or revulsion. Winter arrived. The guards devised a new torture. They deprived him of water for days, then poured wastewater on the frozen ground and ordered him to lick the ice. They taunted him, reminding him that if he died of thirst, the entire Chin family would die with him. Amid their laughter, he slowly crawled over, knelt, and bowed his head. A silver locket fell from inside his shirt. A guard with sharp eyes snatched it up, commenting on its fine quality. Adrian shot to his feet, shouting for them to give it back, his sudden outburst startling everyone. In all the months of humiliation, he had been silent, enduring everything. This was the first time he had fought back. The guards, recovering from their shock, grinned maliciously. One of them suggested that since it was so important to him, they should smash it. Someone brought over a heavy stone. That locket was the only thing he had left from his sister, Sarah. After Julian took power, she too had been stripped of her status. He didn't know if she was alive or dead. He screamed for them not to smash it. Forgetting everything else, he lunged for it, his eyes fixed only on the locket. His fingers closed around it just as the stone came crashing down. There was a sickening crunch. The bones in his hand shattered. The guards, enraged that he dared to defy them, began to beat him senseless. He curled into a ball, protecting the locket with his broken body. Suddenly, a sharp voice cut through the chaos, announcing the president's arrival and demanding to know who was causing the disturbance. A motorcade approached. Julian sat in the back of the open-top car, clad in a dark, formal suit. The guards fell silent, dropping to their knees. Only Adrian remained, trying again and again to push himself up, only to collapse, his mangled hands useless. The car stopped beside him. A pair of cold, indifferent eyes swept over his filthy, battered form. Then, a faint sound, perhaps a soft laugh. Julian gave a dismissive wave of his hand, and the motorcade moved on. Without medical attention, his broken hand swelled to a grotesque size, the pain a constant, throbbing fire. But he didn't care. His sister's locket was safe. Late that night, as he lay twisting in agony, a voice came from the door. The president was summoning him. So late, what could Julian possibly want? He was taken to the private quarters behind the Oval Office. It was freezing outside, but inside a fire crackled, the air warm and scented with sandalwood. A few minutes later, the door opened and a tall figure entered. It was Julian. He had just showered, dressed in a loose robe, his hair still damp and uncombed. His eyes scanned Adrian, and when they landed on his swollen, bandaged hand, something flickered in their depths. He asked casually what Adrian had been protecting so fiercely that day. The question sent a jolt of fear through him. He mumbled that it was nothing. Julian let out a cold snort and said no more. He strode forward and began tearing at Adrian's shirt. After so much abuse, Adrian was too weak to resist. The fabric ripped away, revealing his skeletal ribs and a canvas of old and new bruises. The silver locket fell to the floor. Julian froze, his eyes reflecting the firelight, his expression unreadable. He asked why Adrian, who liked men, cared so much for a woman's trinket. Adrian fell to his knees. He told Julian he had a request to make. Another humorless laugh. Julian asked what right he had to ask for anything. In his eyes, Adrian was less than a dog. It was true. He had no right, but his sister's life was at stake. He crawled forward on his knees, begging the president to restore his sister Sarah's citizenship, to let her live as a common person. As he spoke, he glanced up at Julian's face. It was as cold and remote as ever. He pressed his forehead to the floor, humbling himself completely. He promised he would do anything if Julian granted his request. The room was silent, save for the sound of his head hitting the floor again and again. Suddenly, Julian stood up, grabbed him by the throat, and slammed him against the wall. Blood from his broken forehead dripped onto Julian's long, pale fingers. Julian's voice was a low purr. Anything? Adrian confirmed it. A cruel smile touched Julian's lips as he dragged him to the bed. He ordered him to take off his clothes. Adrian trembled, his broken fingers unable to work the buttons. Julian's patience wore thin. With a violent tug, he ripped the rest of Adrian's clothes off. Adrian instinctively recoiled. He asked what Julian was doing. Julian didn't answer. He opened a box and took something out. It glinted in the firelight. It was a large, polished object of jade. A wave of terror washed over Adrian. He tried to escape, but Julian easily pinned him down. Julian's voice was soft, but his eyes were like ice. He said that since Adrian liked men, he should try this. Adrian screamed, begging him no. He was nearly hysterical, crying that he didn't dare love him anymore, that he would never dare again. Julian's voice was a cool whisper against his ear. He asked if Adrian truly didn't love him, and then asked if he thought his permission was required. This, he said, was what Adrian had brought upon himself. With that, he shoved the object inside him with full force. A pain so profound it felt like he was being torn in two ripped a scream from his throat. He begged and pleaded, but Julian moved without hesitation, again and again. His voice grew hoarse, his strength failed. The wounds on his body reopened, and blood stained the pristine sheets. With his last bit of energy, he lifted his head. All he could see were the heavy, opulent drapes of the canopy bed, layered like a web, trapping him, dragging him down into hell. He heard Julian's voice, a litany of damnation. You deserve this. Why aren't you dead yet? And then, a whisper of confusion. But what did you ever do wrong? In the endless agony, he finally lost consciousness. When he woke, he was back in his own damp, dark room. But his injuries, including his shattered hand, had been treated and bandaged. An aide delivered a message from the president. Adrian was to recover fully. If he died, the entire Chun clan would be executed with him. His family, execution. A silent, broken laugh escaped him. If he wasn't dead, then he would continue to live this wretched existence. A few days later, a message was smuggled to him. It was a letter in Sarah's familiar handwriting. She wrote that she was free, her citizenship restored. She had settled in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city and was making a living with her embroidery. Tears streamed down Adrian's face. He prayed she would live well, live enough for the both of them. Perhaps because of Julian's orders, the staff no longer tormented him. His wounds slowly healed. Spring arrived, and with it, a major development in the capital. Since taking power, Julian had pursued an aggressive foreign policy, forcing the nation that had taken Evelyn to sue for peace. During the negotiations, Julian demanded her return. All these years, he had never forgotten her. His first act as president was to bring back the woman he loved. When Evelyn returned, she was given the highest honor, the sole companion to the president, showered with every luxury. Julian was pouring all his resources into compensating her for the years she had suffered. Somehow, word got out that Adrian was still alive and living in the residence. One day, she came to see him. She looked at him kneeling on the floor, her expression one of shock. She remarked that he was still alive. She had been forced to go into exile in his sister's place. It was only natural that she would hate him. Adrian braced himself for her revenge, but she only gave a cold laugh and left. A few days later, she returned. This time, she was dressed in simple clothes, without her usual retinue. She told Adrian that she had arranged something interesting outside the residence and that he should come with her to see it. He didn't understand, but he was taken out of the city. He noticed a strange, excited glint in her eyes. The car stopped in front of a seedy motel on a desolate highway. Evelyn smiled at him, telling him to go inside, that there was someone he would definitely want to see. He went in, a growing sense of dread coiling in his stomach. What did she want? Who did she want him to see? In a room on the top floor, a dozen men of various descriptions were waiting: vagrants, foreign soldiers, local thugs. Evelyn looked them over with a satisfied smile. She clapped her hands and told them to bring her in. 2 men dragged in a woman. Her clothes were thin, her hands and feet bound. A gag was stuffed in her mouth. But her face was one he saw in his dreams. It was Sarah. He screamed her name and tried to rush forward, but guards held him fast. He demanded to know what Evelyn was doing. She just laughed and pointed at Sarah. Her joy was terrifying. She declared that Sarah would now suffer what she had suffered, tenfold. She told the men that Sarah was a true blue blood, and that they should take their time one by one. The men closed in, their eyes gleaming with a predatory light. Sarah, trapped in the center of them, trembled violently, her sobs muffled by the gag. Adrian begged Evelyn, pleaded with her, bashed his head on the floor, but she remained unmoved. The first man's hand reached for Sarah's clothes. Adrian was pinned to the ground, forced to watch. At the last moment, in a fit of madness, he screamed for them to take him instead. He shouted that he was once a senator's son, that they should take him. Evelyn paused, looking at him with an unreadable expression. She asked if he was truly willing. He swore he was, as long as she let Sarah go. Evelyn considered it, then smiled. She thought that would be interesting, too. At her command, the guards pulled Sarah away. She gestured to Adrian. It was his turn. He looked back at Sarah and forced a smile, trying to comfort her, to tell her it was okay, that he was here to save her. He was pushed down. The first man took a long time, then the second, and the third. He lost track of how many or how long it would continue. There was only one thought in his mind: endure it and Sarah would live. Suddenly, someone screamed. The metallic smell of blood filled the air. He heard his sister's voice, choked and faint, apologizing. She said she couldn't live for him anymore. She had somehow freed herself and snatched a knife from a guard's belt. She had drawn it across her own throat. He threw the man off him and scrambled to her side, catching her as she fell. Her blood, an endless torrent, poured over his hands, into his eyes, staining his entire world red. He babbled that it was okay, trying to staunch the wound, a futile, desperate act. He pleaded with her to open her eyes, to look at him one last time. A sharp pain exploded in his chest. He tasted blood, and it gushed from his own mouth. At that moment, the door was kicked open. Someone rushed in, calling his name. He was pulled into an embrace. The scent was both familiar and alien. The voice kept repeating his name, telling him they were here, begging him to look at them. His vision blurred. He blinked, struggling to focus. The person holding him was Julian. He thought if only he had never met him. He raised a hand to push him away, but darkness consumed him, and his arm fell limp. He woke to the sound of arguing. It was Julian's low voice, questioning Evelyn, asking how she could have become so cruel. Evelyn's cold laugh echoed in response. She retorted that Julian had no idea what she had endured in those years abroad. If she hadn't become cruel, she would never have survived. Julian's voice softened. He said he understood, which was why his first act as president was to bring her back, to ensure she would never suffer again. But she cried out that he was making her suffer now. She reminded him that if not for Sarah, she and Julian would have been married years ago. And now he was taking the side of those siblings against her. They were remnants of a failed regime, Their deaths meant nothing. She asked him why he was so upset. Then her voice turned sharp. Had he actually fallen in love with Adrian? Julian's denial was explosive, immediate. He shouted that he could never love a man. He proclaimed Adrian was the person he hated most in the world. The person he hated most. Adrian listened, feeling nothing. Let him hate. Now he hated himself too. The voices faded. Julian entered the room. Their eyes met. For a second, a look of panic crossed Julian's face. He asked when Adrian had woken up, if their conversation had disturbed him. Adrian lowered his gaze and said he had just woken up, that he hadn't heard anything. Julian seemed to relax. He sat down on the edge of the bed. He informed Adrian that he had given orders for Sarah to be buried with full honors, and told him not to be sad. Beneath the covers, Adrian's hands clenched and unclenched. Finally, he heard his own voice, calm and even, thanking the president for his generosity. Julian's lips curved into what might have been a smile. His voice became soft. He said Adrian would stay with him now, to rest and take his medicine until he was healed. So Adrian stayed in Julian's private quarters. Every day after finishing his work, Julian would return and they would eat together. Sometimes he would even feed Adrian his medication by hand. Rumors began to spread through the residence that the president was keeping a male lover. Julian was furious and had the gossips severely punished, but he did not send Adrian away. One evening at dinner, he suddenly asked Adrian what kind of food he liked. Then he laughed, a little wistfully. He mused that they had known each other for 10 years, yet he still didn't know his preferences. Adrian looked down, saying quietly that he had no preferences. Julian started to say something else, but stopped himself. He placed some food on Adrian's plate, telling him he was too thin and needed to eat more. Adrian said nothing, but he ate every last bite. He needed to eat more. That way, his body would heal faster. Julian didn't confine him. The doctors said that walking would help his recovery. Under careful treatment, his health gradually improved. One day, following his usual routine, he walked out of the residence. He pointed to a large, ornate building in the distance and asked a nearby aide if that was where Evelyn lived. The aide confirmed it was her residence. Adrian smiled and walked straight toward it. He didn't wait to be announced. He kicked the door open and walked in. Evelyn, sitting in the main hall, looked up, first in surprise, then with a cold sneer. She commented that the president was so protective. He forbade her from seeing Adrian, yet here he was, delivering himself to her. Adrian didn't waste words. He told her that a debt of blood must be paid in blood. He lunged forward and wrapped his hands around her throat. The staff screamed in terror. Evelyn's eyes bulged as she struggled, but Adrian's grip was like iron. Her face turned purple. As she was about to lose consciousness, a flash of silver. A deep gash opened on his arm. A heavy kick sent him flying backward. He landed on the shards of a shattered vase, the pain sharp and piercing. Julian, still in his suit from a cabinet meeting, rushed in. His face was pale. He held the unconscious Evelyn, his voice trembling with shock as he demanded to know what Adrian was doing. Lying on the floor, Adrian looked up at him and smiled. He told Julian it was obvious he was trying to kill her. It was a pity he had been a moment too late. He told Julian to kill him. Hadn't he said that Adrian was the person he hated most in the world? Panic flared in Julian's eyes before being swallowed by a dark, fathomless anger. After a long silence, he spoke, his voice chillingly calm. He ordered the guards to sever the tendons in Adrian's hands and keep him under strict guard. The guards moved quickly. With 2 swift cuts, his hands were crippled. Blood poured from the wounds, just as it had from Sarah's neck that night. Red, thick, and endless. His face and body were covered in blood, but he couldn't stop laughing, a crazed, hollow sound. He must have looked like a demon, because he saw Julian's gaze tremble. He was locked away in a remote wing of the residence. The staff followed their orders precisely, watching him constantly, speaking to no one. He lost track of time. He only knew that winter had come again. One evening, his meal included a flask of whiskey. The guards were lax, gathering together to drink and talk. He learned it was New Year's Eve again. A time for celebration. It meant nothing to him. For the first time in months, he was able to step outside. He sat alone under a tree, drinking. The cold was bitter. After 2 glasses, he was seized by a coughing fit so violent it felt like he was trying to expel his own organs. When it finally subsided, he leaned against the tree, exhausted and gasping for air. A voice called out his name from the moonlit path. A figure stared at him, then rushed forward, grabbing him by the shoulders. It was Marcus Kane. He was shocked by Adrian's condition. Adrian just smiled blankly and pushed his hands away. He asked Marcus what he expected him to look like. The man standing before him, the one he had once considered his only friend, the one who had used him so completely. His support of Julian's coup had been rewarded with a high-ranking command on the frontier. He was back for the holidays. Marcus asked if the president had done this to him. He pulled up Adrian's sleeves, seeing the crisscrossing scars on his hands and wrists in the moonlight. He promised to petition the president to release Adrian, to take him away. Adrian refused. He told him it was useless. Another voice, cold as ice, cut through Marcus's pleas. Julian had appeared from the shadows, his face a mask of mottled light and dark. Marcus bowed stiffly. He reminded the president that before he had left for his post, Julian had promised him that he would not harm Adrian. Julian's lips twisted into a dismissive smile. He stated that as president, he could do as he pleased. Besides, he added, the debt Adrian owed him was not yet paid in full. Marcus's chest heaved with anger. He forgot decorum and demanded to know what debt he could possibly owe. He reminded Julian that if Adrian hadn't saved him from that club, he would be dead. He asked if Adrian had ever mistreated him, ever been unkind. He pointed out that to avoid annoying Julian, Adrian had wandered the city every night, afraid to even return to his own home. As Marcus spoke, the careless smile on Julian's face vanished, his lips pressing into a thin, hard line. His hands, hanging at his sides, clenched into fists. Marcus turned back to Adrian, grabbing his hand again, pleading with him to leave. Adrian's hands were useless now. He couldn't break free. He sighed and looked at Marcus quietly. He said that he knew his father had not been a good leader, and he didn't blame Marcus for seeking a better future for the country. But he asked him why he had to use him to do it. His betrayal had made Adrian a traitor to his own family, a shame he would carry to his grave, and he had considered Marcus his best friend. The hand gripping his went slack. Marcus's face was ashen. Adrian turned and walked away, coughing. He told Marcus to leave, that he never wanted to see him again. His throat and chest ached. He leaned against a wall, unable to go on, consumed by another racking cough. A sudden warmth enveloped him. Julian had placed his own heavy coat over his shoulders. He asked why the cough was so bad and said he would summon the physician. Adrian pressed himself against the wall, trying to create distance. Julian's lips moved as if to say something, but he only let out a soft sigh. Then, before Adrian could react, He pulled him into a fierce embrace. The embrace was warm and smelled of ink, just as it had 10 years ago. Julian whispered for him not to leave. He asked him to stay, to always be with him. He slowly lowered his head, his lips nearing Adrian's. Adrian turned his face away. Julian held him tighter, burying his face in Adrian's neck. And over his shoulder, Adrian saw Evelyn standing in the distance, her eyes burning with a venomous hatred. Soon after the new year, a new rumor spread. The son of the former senator was alive, held captive in the presidential residence. Rebellions flared up in several provinces, all under the banner of overthrowing the new regime and installing Adrian as the rightful leader. Reports of battles flooded the capital. The cabinet urged Julian to have Adrian publicly executed to remove the pretext for the rebellion. But Julian suppressed all their proposals. He told Adrian that he would protect him. Adrian laughed. He suggested that killing him would be far easier. Julian roared at him not to speak nonsense. Then his voice softened again. He took Adrian's cold, limp fingers and warmed them in his own. He swore he would never let him die, that he would stay by his side for this entire life. Adrian laughed even louder. He asked Julian if he was insane, wanting to spend a lifetime with the person he hated most. Julian's words tumbled out, a confession that he didn't hate him, that he stopped, his gaze intense. He insisted he didn't hate him, not really. But Adrian did. He hated Julian. Julian's eyes filled with pain. He said it didn't matter. He caressed Adrian's gaunt face with a tenderness that was terrifying. He whispered that he didn't care about anything, as long as Adrian stayed with him. The rebellion grew stronger, becoming impossible to contain. Julian decided to lead the army himself. The night before he left, he didn't visit Evelyn. He stayed with Adrian, holding him all night. He made him promise to wait for his return. Julian left. Within days, Evelyn arrived with a retinue of guards. She was as regal as ever, jewels glittering in her hair. She told Adrian he must know about the rebellions being fought in his name. She recounted how the president had argued that Adrian was merely a figurehead, that his death wouldn't stop them. Julian was right. A disgraced son of a fallen dynasty, powerless and with a ruined reputation, made an excellent puppet for ambitious men. But, she continued, his existence was still a threat. And so, she would resolve the matter on the president's behalf. Adrian, who had been expecting this, looked at her calmly. He asked how she planned to kill him. Evelyn laughed. She reminded him that the president wanted him by his side for a lifetime. But a man couldn't remain in the private wing of the residence forever. So she would solve that problem. She would have him castrated. Then she would take him to the front lines and have him stripped before the rebel armies, to show them that the man they wanted to crown as their leader was no longer a man. The family line would be truly and finally severed. In this way, his life would be spared, and he could remain with the president forever. She asked if he shouldn't thank her for such a clever idea. Her laughter was long and cruel, echoing with a vicious triumph that chilled everyone present. When she finally finished, she gave the order. He was given no chance to resist. He was stripped and held down like an animal. When the blade fell, blood erupted. He felt no pain, only noise. Everyone around him, Evelyn, the guards, the staff, they were all looking at him and they were all laughing. They seemed to be saying, "You're pathetic. You deserve this. Your sins are unforgivable. What was your crime?" His wounds were bandaged. 2 days later, he was put in a cage on a truck and driven to the front lines. Evelyn's convoy followed. They arrived at the battlefield. He was dragged before the two opposing armies. From his command post, Julian saw them and cried out in shock, asking why they were there. He tried to dismount, but his own soldiers restrained him. Evelyn smiled brightly and announced to Julian that she had solved a difficult problem for him. Then she addressed the rebel army, declaring that this was the man they wanted to rule them, and that he had been made a eunuch. She asked if they really wanted to be ruled by a eunuch, calling it the greatest joke in the world. A murmur of shock and confusion went through the ranks. All eyes were on Adrian. Evelyn, sensing their disbelief, offered to provide proof on the spot. She ordered her guards to undo his trousers. Julian screamed for them to stop. He dismounted, trying to rush forward, but his soldiers clung to him, begging him not to go, with the enemy line so close. Julian, unable to break free, roared a threat. Anyone who touched Adrian would have their entire family annihilated. The guards fell to their knees. Evelyn raised her chin. She told them to stand back, that she would do it herself. She walked toward Adrian. As Julian screamed her name, she reached for him, her face impassive. She leaned in and whispered that he shouldn't blame her. He had stolen Julian's heart. As his official companion, she was never touched by him. At night, when he thought she was asleep, he would whisper Adrian's name over and over. Adrian nodded. He said he didn't blame her for anything she did to him. But, as he spoke, he drew a shard of sharpened metal he had kept hidden against his skin. He plunged it deep into her stomach. As her face twisted in pain, he smiled softly. But he had to avenge Sarah. Blood spread across her fine clothes. Evelyn collapsed, her eyes wide with pain and disbelief. Adrian let out a long breath and turned to face the distant figure in the command post. Julian, still held back by his men, stared at him, his arm outstretched. He begged Adrian to come to him, but Adrian shook his head. The metal shard in his hand was still sharp. He drove it into his own chest without a moment's hesitation. Finally, this was the day he had been waiting for. He heard Julian's anguished cry. Julian seemed to have gone mad, drawing his own sword and cutting down the men who held him back. He stumbled as he ran, falling several times, his uniform covered in mud. He finally reached Adrian and gathered him in his arms, his face a mess of tears and dirt. He sobbed that he would get a doctor, begging Adrian not to die, not to leave him. Adrian struggled to speak. He whispered that it was all his fault, that he deserved to die 1,000 deaths. But in truth, the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life was falling in love with Julian. Julian shook his head frantically, insisting that was not true. His entire body trembled as he tried to press his hands against the wound, just as Adrian had tried to do for Sarah. He confessed his love for Adrian, over and over, babbling that all the sins were his, that Adrian should live, that he would die to atone for what he'd done. No. Adrian turned his head away and looked at the endless blue sky. 10 years, and it was just like the beginning. He told Julian he had wanted to die for a long time, and that he had stopped loving him long ago. Today, to finally be free, brought him more joy than anything else. Thinking back on it, since the day they had met, his happiest day was this one. Julian's pleas were desperate. He begged Adrian not to stop loving him, not to leave him. He cried that they had to be together in this life and the next, and the one after that, forever. Adrian wanted to laugh, but he didn't have the strength. Julian was so pitifully foolish. For all of eternity, he never wanted to encounter him again. But he had one last thing to say. He told Julian, for the sake of the country, to be a good president. With Adrian's death, the rebellion collapsed. Julian solidified his rule. He governed like a machine, working day and night, reforming the nation with ruthless efficiency. 2 years later, he launched another war against the foreign power and won a decisive victory. But the commanding general, Marcus Cain, was mortally wounded. With his dying breath, he came to see the president. He brought with him a small child, explaining that this was Adrian's nephew, the last of his bloodline. He begged Julian to raise the boy well. Julian agreed. A light flared in Marcus's eyes before it faded. He closed his eyes, murmuring that besides the betrayal, he had finally done one thing for him. Now, when they met in the afterlife, perhaps Adrian wouldn't hate him so much. For years, Julian never took another partner, never established a court. When not governing, he devoted himself to raising the boy. Against the protests of his entire cabinet, he insisted the child keep his family name and named him his official heir. Decades passed. The heir was a man now. He led his own faction into the Oval Office, his weapon aimed directly at Julian. He had come to avenge his ancestors. Julian showed no fear. Instead, he laughed, a sound of profound relief. He said he had been waiting for this day for a very long time. In his final moments, he took a silver and jade fountain pen from his breast pocket. It was covered in a web of fine cracks, as if it had once been shattered and painstakingly glued back together. He caressed the broken pen and whispered Adrian's name. He said he knew Adrian never wanted to see him again. So in the next life, he hoped he would become the wind that tousled his hair, or a snowflake that landed on his shoulder. Just to meet for a single, fleeting moment would be enough.